It's the day after my first mushroom experience, and I wanted to get this all out while it was still fresh in my mind. My best friend, we'll call her Sarah, and I had been planning on doing mushrooms together for a couple weeks. We were always hanging out all through high school, and we kind of drifted apart for a few years and went off to do our own things, and we finally got back together and hanging out again after my fiancée left me, and we've been having a great time. Just about every drug I've ever tried, she's been there for the first time, and it's great because she's experienced it before and she makes me feel safe while we're high together. And so we finally decided on a good time to try shrooms. We bought 2/8 of blue-tinted foul-smelling mushrooms from a guy she knew. He told us to just take a stem and a cap at first and go from there. When we were about 20 minutes away from home, we ate 2 stems each, got home, set up the house with a bunch of trippy lights that we had bought earlier in the week, set up the stereo with a bunch of good music, although we only listened to a Pigface album and Beck. At about 12:15 a.m. we divided up the rest of the mushrooms and had them all 8 by 1. We sat on the couch playing with a bunch of Kush balls that had lights in them when you squeezed them for a while, waiting for everything to kick in. I realized one of the lights that we had bought, one that had 2 prongs extending into the air that had small motors at the end and a piece of thick white string between it, and a bunch of colored LEDs on the bottom illuminating it, wasn't turned on, so I flipped it on its demo mode and watched as the string spun at high speeds and made freaky patterns with the light reflecting off of it. The Pigface CD started to skip at this point, so we stood up to go change it and realized we were frying so hard. I started looking around the room and back at the string light and noticed everything was starting to have like a psychedelic curtain over it, and colors were just amazing. We flipped the CD over to Beck and sat back down and started playing with the string light, moving the prongs back and forth, changing up the patterns and watching things through the string get all distorted and twisted up, like something had taken a blender to the color of the room and started to mix it up. Sarah put the thing on the floor, and we noticed that it made a light up on the ceiling as well that changed color. She sat next to it and started making shadows with her hands on the ceiling to the beat of the music. I was still standing up and watching this going on, and I came over and started doing liquid with my arms way above her and put my shadows on the ceiling over the top of hers. Her shadows were sharply defined and moving spasmodically to the beat, and my shadows were kind of fuzzy and distorted from being further away, flowing with the beat of the music. At one point it became a game, and I was trying to flow my liquid around her fingertips and crossing her fingers with my arms to try and form geometric patterns. It was just an amazing light show, and we both just put what we had into it. Dancing was just awesome in general. I've danced on ecstasy, and it's nice. You have smooth control of your body, and you have a good sense of the music. But on the mushrooms, it was like at points the music just held its own map of what my body should do, and then it would just let go and let me go wild, and it would come back off and on. I was doing some crazy moves that I never would have even thought of in any other situation. At one point, I was doing liquid, but I was acting like parts of my body were malfunctioning at different times. My hands would be chasing each other, and I would just stop one and start twitching it while the other kept flowing. I would start pressing my hands into my body at different heights, like my chest and shoulders, and sending waves from one arm to my hand up my body to my other hand. It was excellent and so much fun. But none warned me about how good things would feel as far as sense of touch goes. Some said it was like ecstasy, and that was what I was expecting. But ecstasy was real easy to control. Mushrooms are a whole different demon. At one point, Sarah started dancing with me and rubbing her hands up and down my body and chest, and I was suddenly extremely turned on. Remember, this is my best friend, and to even further complicate things, both of us had just lost relationships that meant a lot to us. I wanted to kiss her hella bad, and I thought, if I don't just go for it, I'll never know, so I asked. And she rejected it, which if I had been sober would have made me a little sad, and I would have been over it in a minute. But on the shrooms it made me feel really embarrassed. Then I realized that she was my friend, and I might have just made her feel weird. I was so scared that things were suddenly going to change between us, and I just got lost in this thought that I had just done something horrible and that I was going to lose my friend over it. So I laid down and she asked me what was wrong, and I was just feeling totally mind-fucked and felt like I was melting. My face was wet and really sticky, and I couldn't understand what was happening because I couldn't really see too much, and what little I could I didn't even know if it was real. It felt like my nose was bleeding, and I finally got a light on my hand, and I realized it was bleeding bad, for real, and I was just soaked in blood. At this point, Sarah finally realized my trip had just turned insanely bad, and I didn't even know where I was or what was happening, so she turned every light in the house back on, and just led me to the bathtub to drip in so I wouldn't make a mess. She was helping me clean up, and I saw that she was covered in my blood. I just felt horrible because I was a complete mess, and now it was getting on her, and I didn't even comprehend that she was trying to help me. I just wanted her to go away so I could just deal with it myself and save her the trouble. I really just wanted her to enjoy herself and leave me alone, but she wasn't having it and stayed there, and for some reason it just embarrassed the shit out of me. All I could think about was how much I wanted the high to go away, and how bad an idea it was to even get involved with shrooms in the first place. About an hour after the lights came on, I finally got past the complete mindfuck stage, and I was concentrating on coming down. I could feel the weird mushroom thoughts come and go and getting fainter as the night went on. We just kind of sat across the room from each other because I just didn't feel comfortable being close to her, and talked a bunch of things out until we finally brought me back to reality, and I realized that we were friends and nothing had changed and that we were still going to be there in the morning. Looking back now, it was kind of silly, but I had completely underestimated the drug and took way too high of a dose for my first time. If X is like a toy, shrooms is like a gateway to a whole new universe opening up and grabbing me. My final thoughts on the whole experience: I definitely don't regret it. The whole mission was fun, the planning, going and getting the shrooms, getting them home and setting up. The trip itself was really good for a while, but it kind of ended on a traumatic note. But I got a lot cleared off of my chest, and so did she, and I actually feel better about myself today as a whole. I might do it again, but next time it will be with a much milder dose, and maybe I'll try to build back up to a dose as strong as I took my first time, but right now I want nothing to do with it.